I have had a few experiences of bad netiquette. One that comes to mind is when someone shortens something in an email, such as the phrase all the best into ATB, and it just makes it difficult to understand what they mean, especially if I have to go away and Google search what the phrase means. Kind of waste my time.
With netiquette and your etiquette when you're on the web, it's sometimes you get emails that are addressed very informally and it's not what you're expecting, or you can get things that it gives you a bad impression of someone with the words they use, or if it's too conversational sometimes.
One of my particular pet hates of bad netiquette is when people abbreviate words such as you to just the letter U in an email. My mum does that sometimes and it drives me nuts. The rules of netiquette that I follow are quite basic, so when I'm sending an email, I always make sure that I address the person in the correct manner. If it's someone that perhaps I don't know or is quite senior to me, I might address them as dear, but in most circumstances, if I know the person, I'll address them with a hi, or perhaps if it's a friend, with a hey, and always sign off the email correctly, so with a regards or kind regards.
Well, I always try and remain polite in my answers, and if I were ever to contribute to a blog, I would be very careful about my language and how I convey my tone, because obviously everything on the internet is permanent. I think everyone can always work better on their tone, and I have had experiences in emails to professors, for example, where they have thought that I was implying something that I wasn't necessarily. And so I think everyone can always improve on that, on how their messages come across to people.
Just the golden rule is to remember that you're talking to a person, and that if you wouldn't say it to their face, don't do it online.
The things that I do wrong with netiquette, I'd say just perhaps add too many exclamation marks. I always sound a bit too excited, and I should stop using capitals in a way that kind of could come off as aggressive.
A rule of netiquette that I'd like to see people use a bit more often is using capital letters when appropriate in emails. I think emails are essentially just another form of a letter, and there's no excuse not to use proper spelling, grammar and punctuation.
I appreciate when I see someone has taken the time to answer my email. When I ask several questions in an email or I make several points, I like all of them to be responded, not just the last one or just the one that they haven't answered to right then. I like people to at least acknowledge what I'm saying in an email, because it's different to a conversation, because you think about what you're going to write down and you want an answer to everything you have written down.
I think with netiquette you definitely need to type how you talk and just don't say things that you wouldn't say to someone's face. Just be responsible with your words, because they're online. It's always going to be online. It's going to be a record of your chat, and that's something you should take into consideration when you're talking to people.
I think rules that should be used more are capitalising people's names. I think that people deserve to have a capital for their name.
I think the three most important rules of netiquette for me are making sure that you know your audience and you address them correctly, making sure that you don't use emoticons incorrectly, it's not the right place to express emotion, and also making sure you don't shorten words or phrases unnecessarily, like taking down you to the letter U when it's not really appropriate.
I think the three most important rules of netiquette are you've got to remember who you're writing to and what kind of audience that's going to be. And you've also got to make sure that it's something you'd be happy to say face-to-face to them. And also just make sure that you're always polite and courteous and you don't say anything that could be interpreted harmfully.
I would say always answer someone's questions if they're asking a question directly to you. Be very careful of tone when talking to people so that you don't imply something that you didn't intend to. And the most important one to me would be don't make criticism lightly. When someone shares their work on the internet, it's very sad to see someone receive lots of negative criticism because it's not constructive and it's very easy to make negative criticism when it's anonymous.